Social Security doesn't even keep up with the cost of living, say the naysayers. Anyway, so we're going to disprove this once and for all. So I started reading my man John Kenneth Galbraith, and I have never read this guy, and he's a pretty notorious economist, from the typical, not from the London School, but that's the London School of Economics and things of this nature. Would some of these guys actually? It's funny because I think that's where Andrew Biggs got his PhD from, if memory serves. I could be wrong there. But anyway, a lot of the guys from Harvard, which he was a professor at, and LSE and stuff, just kind of just run of the mill liberal economists. You're just like, ugh. And you only have so much time in the day. So generally speaking, I like to read things that are outside the mainstream. However, I think the Chicago Boys is the mainstream now of Milton Friedman and whatnot. And I think reading some people that I might not have otherwise even looked at twice to see what I might have been missing. You know what I'm saying? So I've read a number of stuff from, I hate to say the left, but it kind of would be the left and recently. And some of that stuff's pretty interesting to me. It's some stuff I missed in my older, more monetarist Chicago Boys training and Austrian school training, which Milton Friedman would be the head of the Chicago, that monetarist, and Ludwig von Mises would be the head of the Austrian school. Anyway, so it's interesting. So I just started reading this, and I had an epiphany, not an epiphany, but again, another realization. Remember, it's the left-wing economists who pushed Social Security back on the FDR times. And in the old days, I would have voted against it. You know what I'm saying? I would have said, nah, we can't have that. And now I'm 100% on board with Social Security because I recognize it for what it is, man. Not only is it a way to keep people out of poverty, but it's a coerced way to save for your retirement. It's just what it is, man. And if we didn't have some level of coercion, no one would save for the retirement. When I say no one, I don't mean literally no one. I'm being exaggerating here, but you know what I'm saying. The vast majority of people would not. Just because they consume it, man. I mean, just a fact. So Social Security is a two-pronged approach. It says we're going to make sure that you're not sitting in poverty in retirement, but we're also going to make sure you have some sort of retirement as well. And some of us can live quite nicely on Social Security, regardless if that was the intention or not. All these people, Social Security is never supposed to be, it doesn't matter. It is now. I mean, people say there's supposed to be a three-legged stool. Those days are gone. Social Security is never supposed to make you, freaking well-to-do in retirement. Okay, well, those days are gone now, too. This is what we're dealing with Social Security. It's a coerced savings program, all right? That's just a fact, and you can live quite nicely on that coerced savings program. In fact, I think Andrew Biggs wrote that a husband and wife with a married couple with making the max and Social Security can make $96,000 a year on their Social Security benefit. I can't remember if that's with delayed earnings credits or not. I just don't recall. But some of the naysayers out there, and there are plenty of them, they say it doesn't keep up with the cost of living. It's just simply not true. And I'm gonna show you here. So what I've been working on, I always like to start with a little scratch pad because I'm old school. I'm a caveman. I still use a pen and a piece of paper. You're lucky this isn't a yellow pad. I still use a yellow pad when I can get them. Now I like to create a spreadsheet. I'm going to show you here. And so what we're doing is we're taking Social Security cost of living adjustments going back to 1975, and we're comparing it to food at home. All right, so hang tight. And you can see right here, if we go as 8% in 1975 for social, 8.25% for food at home. Next year, you can see all this. And we're going to scroll all the way down, and we're going to see the average Social Security COLA is 3.77. The average increase for food at home is 3.5 from 1975. All right. Now I want to go over to energy. And we're going to say, so we know for that's undeniable that Social Security has kept up with the price of food at home. All right, that's just a fact. It has. Your Social Security COLA has kept up with the food at home, the cost of food at home. Now, you could argue all day long. I don't know what you'd argue in this regard. I don't know. You could say, well, Biden's saying shrinkflation, all that. The only thing that's shrinking when it comes to Biden is what that little pea brain has in his brain right there. How dare you talk about our president, dude? The guy's just out of control. So we can, if we sit there and say what used to cost $1 now costs $10 in terms of a basket of food, and what used to get $1 for Social Security now we're getting $10.50. Inherently, Social Security has kept up with the cost of living when it comes to food. Now you can make a case for energy, and we're going to show you energy right here, because remember, everything that you need revolves around energy, and then food is secondary of that. So energy is a driving force behind inflation. It's just that simple, dude. Energy is. So everything you find is revolving energy, and food is a corollary of that. So the two most important things for most retirees once their house is paid for is food and shelter being paid for, all right? And then keep themselves warm, free from the elements, and to keep themselves cool and energy. Energy does everything. Energy is allowing me to do this right here. Energy. Everything revolves around energy. So we go back to 1975. You can see our increase in it was 4.05% a year from 1975 to 2023. We go back to my spreadsheet. Social Security is 3.77. So it did not keep up fully with the price energy. But then we look at what actually the big. Oh, look at that. All right. So now that's the big, OPEC crisis and freaking Carter and whatnot, and Paul Volcker. Remember, Paul Volcker's raising interest. He was the president of the Reserve in New York right until there. I think Clark was the guy before him. They're raising interest rates this whole time. Didn't stop inflation. Weird how all of a sudden right here it did. Well, it's because deregulation of energy sector. Anyway, be that as it may, so you can see these massive inflation things in the 70s. So we're just going to start right here in 1980. Again, we're going to go 1980, and we're going to see what the year-to-year increase in inflation was from 1980 to 2000, 2.81. Interesting. So now let's take a look at Social Security. From 1980 to 2023, Social Security has grown by 3.3% a year, 3.36% a year. For energy, has grown by 2.81. So Social Security has beaten the COLA for cost of living, or beaten the increase in energy costs, and has also beaten the increase in food. I don't know how else you can say this. What would be another issue we'd contend with? Transportation. But transportation is that big of a deal once you're retired because you're not buying and selling new and used cars very much. You're just not. So transportation is number 3 in our CPI. We can look at it. We can take a look and see what it looks like. Let's see here. Here's transportation from 1980, 2.75. And again, Social Security is 3.36. So let's go back to 1975. All right. And we know that Social Security is 3.77 from 1975. 3.55 for transportation. Transportation is one of the top 3 items of the BLS Consumer Expenditure Survey when it comes to CPI. And this is, by the way, Social Security is divided up in 2 ways for indexing too, by the way. So we have the COLA once you're retired, and then we have the average wage index, which has beaten the Social Security COLAs by about 25 to 50 basis points. All right, so the average wage index grows while you're waiting for your Social Security to kick in, and then once it kicks in, you get the COLAs. It's not quite that way, but pretty doggone close. And COLAs are actually less than AWI. So Social Security actually pays more than the cost of living on an annual basis. Not every single year, and we can see right here, there's a couple years in here where the Social Security underperformed. Here's COLA for Social Security right here, 2022. COLA for Social Security is up by 8.7. Food at home was 11.42. 2023 is the same thing. But here, 2018, 2019, 2016, 2017. Anyway, so I just wish, I don't know what it is. Like, people have this need, people on the right in particular, which is the bulk of my audience, I grant you, have this need to just bash Social Security. It's just, I don't like it, man. Like, so many people rely. I just listened to my man Chris Martenson talk on the Jack Spirko, the Survival podcast back from 2010. I'm a huge fan of Chris Martin. Is that the name, Martenson or something like that? I think it's Chris Martenson from Peak Prosperity. But I'm not saying he's a doomsayer, and he wasn't saying that necessarily. But the debt. He's talked about this in 2010. The debt was enormous, and it will never be repaid. Dude, we've been hearing this for decades and decades and decades, and they just keep saying it and saying it and saying it. And at some point, they're going to be right. I grant you, but that's 2010. We're now 15 years later, and yet we're still trucking along, man. And the debt has expanded remarkably since 2010. I just think people forget how bad we thought the debt was in 2010. And everyone back then said, oh, this time it's not going to last. And yet here we are. And people are saying the same thing now. They said the same thing during FDR's time. Why put yourself through all this worry and all this? I got my man, Greg, old Greggy. And Greg's used to be a bodybuilder, weightlifter. We're talking about weights and stuff. And I like Greg. But I said, Greg, I just think you're thinking this too much, man. No one knows. No one knows. But certainly don't worry about it because there's nothing you can do about it anyway. But when it comes to Social Security specifically, the fact that 66 million people rely on that, if you absolutely think that they're going to reduce that benefit on those 66 million people and think the economy is going to be solvent and think your IRA is going to be okay, I don't know what to tell you, man. That just seems crazy talk to me. You better be buying a hell of a lot of gold and nothing else because deflation would come and it's going to be brutal if that were to happen. It's not going to happen. Love your thoughts. God bless. We'll see you.